Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we're doing another installment of the weekly meta breakdown where we look at the best performing decks on the MTG Arena ladder. Today's video is going to cover the standard best of one format. If you're looking for best of three, Explorer, Historic, Alchemy. Alchemy is basically just one deck, so don't worry about that one. But everything else is in the playlist. You can catch all the details there. Each week we'll cover based on a statistical approach as well as tournament results to see what's the most popular thing that's happening, as well as what's the most performing thing that's happening. So very interesting kind of look at the meta if you're looking to try to get into Mythic, keep a high rank. This kind of keeps you up to date with the trends in terms of the meta. So we get the data, as I mentioned, from UntapedGG, companion tool that runs alongside Arena's client, aggregates your win rate along with other users' win rates. Gives us a bunch of cool stats. The link is in the video description if you want to get started with Untap today. I'll also link and timestamp all the deck lists so you can just copy paste. So no worries about, pausing, entering cards one by one. So we're going to start off with the popularity of the meta, and then we're going to shift, and because it's towards the end of the month, we're going to look at just Mythic rank, because it's the best time to see people pushing for that top 1200, top 250 spot. What are the kind of cream of the crop? If you have to make me choose what deck to play, what am I going to play? And we'll look at it in that sense there. So the popularity of the day, we actually have to filter for Platinum to Mythic to get the data, but we're going to look at the percentage of distribution. And one kind of key thing to note when we're looking at this week encompasses both the end of the last month's season as well as the beginning of the new month's season. Beginning of the new month, people generally want to try to speed run to Mythic, so there's usually a more shift into, and what we'll see, the popularity of aggro decks, particularly mono red and mono white. Mono red up to 24% of the meta, and if we look at the chart below, you can see like last week it was hovering, mid-teens up to 21, and then to like the last 2 days it's been up to 24. People are like, new season, slaps the hood of the car, gotta put some mountains in that bad boy. We have mono white humans, Golgari Midrange about 8%, 4-color control, which is kind of the Atraxa ramp piles, as well as the enchantments at 3. Mono blue usually operates around like the 2 to 3% range, just given it's very cheap to build. It's the cheapest deck to build. Esper Legends 3%, and then mono white control at 2.5%. Mono white control deck's doing terrible, at least in the higher ranks, was at 46% in the Mythic rank. So if you don't have the cards for it, I wouldn't necessarily suggest investing in it in best of one at this point. The win rates are going to be kind of all over the place. Mono white humans tends to edge out the mono red deck slightly for the day, but I don't like looking at daily rates because it's very contingent on who's playing, how many games get played, what rank, stuff like that. That kind of plays into effect. But when we're looking at the Mythic rank, we have 34,000 games played of Magic, Mythic rank only for the last week, so fairly decent sample size, all things considered. We're going to jump into it. Mono White Humans was the top deck, 63.5%, and nothing really new with this particular build. This is the build that's been around for some time, old reliable. Knight Errant of Eos plays pretty nice with the just huge creature piles. You can convoke, get some card advantage. I know Hello Good Game got to number 3 Mythic at the ladder reset with a version of this that was playing 2 of the white virtues in place, as well as a couple cheeky mouse. The one thing with their list, they were on 20 lands, but playing 3 Thalias, and then between the Knight Errant and just the virtue, a lot of 5-drops. So the mana seemed a little pushed in that regard, just having that mount. They had some ginger roots in there as well. Could just be like taking advantage of the shuffler in best of one, but the core of the deck, you basically want to dump a bunch of creatures into play. You have human synergies with like Coppercoat Vanguard to give protection and ward. You have Intrepid Adversary to buff your team. Adeline gives you a really wide board as well, so you really want to curve out 1, 2, 3 in this deck, or 1, 2, 1, 2 type thing. 4 creatures kind of going there and just smashing into your opponent that way there. The mono red aggro decks has a lot of different variations. This one's at 62%. So no Squee in this particular version. You still have your Godric's, but playing a couple copies of Nahiri's Warcrafting in here. I was doing some thought because I have this deck in paper, and my upcoming Sword Championships are likely going to be standard. So the thought of Witchstalker Frenzy versus Nahiri's Warcraft. I was thinking, why are people still playing Warcrafting over the Frenzy when it's just a lot easier to enable the Frenzy? And oftentimes you don't have the mana to both Warcrafting as well as play the card off it. At most, you usually just get a land off it. But I was thinking about it, and it's really because of Bloodthirsty Adversary. The adversary is limited to being able to cast cards with mana value 3 CMC or less. The Warcrafting fits this condition, where Witchstalker Frenzy's base card is 4 CMC, so you're not able to flash it back with Bloodthirsty Adversary. Although with Witchstalker, you're often casting it for less mana, it's not as reliable there. Other than the deck, like this one's still on the Phoenix Chick. Sometimes you see the Shivan Devastator. I do think I still like some squeeze. The one thing is when your meta is very heavily creature based, and particularly like mono red, Feldon's really good. When the meta is more black based removal or like exile, it's not as good because you're not really going to trigger its condition. Like in the mono red mirror, this becomes basically pseudo unblockable until the end, where they don't really want to provide card advantage in that respect. So interesting kind of configuration there. Again, like in a heavy removal based meta, Monstrous Rage isn't the greatest. It's better in like creature kind of mirrors. So just something to keep in mind as you're building the deck. Sorry, I'm still a little bit like with my voice. It's getting better, but it's still like a little wishy-washy, so I apologize in advance. So we're up to Esper Legends, and it's at 59%, so this is the Worlds list. So basically the Worlds list, they just did a configuration, so they have to go for the Throat and one Make Disappear, fewer copies of Rona because it's worse into the mirrors and just the Shieldred piles. A lot of the decks have replaced Adeline with Lord Skitter just as incidental graveyard hate, good against like the Golgari recursive creatures, even things like Squee coming back from the graveyard, stuff of that nature. This deck presents very difficult curves for like mono red and just creature decks, going Skrelv into Denick, just the lifelinker, into Rafine, into Shieldred. Oftentimes can just run away with the game. You're playing 27 Lions, in part because these are basically spells in this deck. Given that you have all these legends, they basically just cost 1 mana. So this helps you to avoid early mana screw situations, while then late game just having an abundance to do with your mana, as well as you could just throw things away with Rafine or the copies of Rona itself. Because you're only on 4 non-creatures, Thalia is really good. And then you have your Fairy Masterminds, which is the honorary legend. That can just draw cards if your opponent's drawing cards as well. Some Urtais as disruption in the deck itself. We then move to Golgari Midrange. So this is at 57.9%. So this version is the Blossoming Tortoise version. Sometimes they're on it, sometimes they're not. The Tortoise does interact really nicely with Mishra's Foundry as well as Restless Cottage, reducing the cost of their activations, but also powering them up. You could also mill them over, or if they just die in combat, you get to resurrect. This version, so the thing is, Duress is a little hit or miss. In best of one, against mono red, it's not bad, but we saw against like the humans list, it's basically a dead card, as well as against like legends, it's pretty much a dead card. In all honesty, if you want to play Golgari in best of one, you're probably better off just switching these to the full set of cutdowns. You'll have more utility in targets, like. You make your control matchup worse or your ramp matchup, but those are just like if we look at sheer percentage of games being played, like the top 2 decks is representing 35% of the meta versus like your ramp deck. You still have targets, I guess, in the mid-range deck. Celestial Enchantments, you still have targets. Mono blue, you're not going to have targets, but it's fine. Like you're not playing these decks that often. If you do, like if best of one's really about kind of trying to hedge you're kind of pre-boarding in the sense because you're only getting 1 game. So I would make that change in all honesty. By just having the removal package. You have a Bramble in this deck just to help you ramp. Mosswood Dread Knight's kind of the key card as to why these decks are moving to Golgari. Just providing you card advantage and a recursive sticky body. That kind of sticks around. Trespassers in here as another way to gain some life. Eat away at the graveyards. Some Lilianas. This version is playing Sentinel of Lost Lore. So enters the battlefield, you can choose 1 of 3. I had this in my draft top 8 pool for my store championship yesterday. So you return target creature you own from an adventure to your hand. So you basically can recycle your Mosswood Dread Knights. This can eat away at your opponent's adventures or also exile the graveyard. Decent body, all things around. There's not too much graveyard combo in best of one. Like you could hit a squee. There's not too much adventure that we see. I guess the thing you could do is you could reset any of the virtues, but you don't necessarily want to reset your opponent's like virtue persistence when you're a creature based deck. This one's interesting. I don't know how I necessarily feel about it without getting some games in. Dick's Command's very good in best of one. Deals with all these go wide decks. You may even want a second copy of that, and then like the Nissa Virtue top end with some glissas. Then go to 4-color control. So this is likely just mirrored off of Reduke's list from Worlds, 57.8%. So you have your Courier Briefcase, Beanstalk as your 2-drops along with the Go for the Throat, Topiary Stomper, as well as Invasion of Zendikar, helping you get across. So basically the big thing here is there's a shift to a more black-based deck as opposed to white-based deck. You'll notice that in the number of plains versus swamps. So no ossification in the main. You have like your angels to catch you up on life. Leyline Binding costs like as little as 1. 3 virtues in this to gain you some life. Virtues do a nice job in best of 1, just killing a creature and then effectively like fogging an attack from another creature. So like you gain 3 life here, you gain 2 life here. The Archangel could gain 2 to 4 life plus the lifelink. There's a lot of ways to kind of stave off like early aggression from your opponent's deck. Then you win through like Atraxa, the Virtue, Bird Migration, Angel. Like most of the time you'll cast Atraxa and your opponent just concedes at that point there. We then go to Dimir Midrange. And this is kind of a mid-rangey control deck. So you still have like your removal package, cut downs, go for the throats, make the spear. So it's at 55% win rate. Trespasser, kind of cool interaction here. You have Gumdrop Poisoner. So for a mana, it makes a food at instant speed. And then for 3 mana, when it enters a battlefield, up to 1 target creature gets X minus XX, where X is the amount of life you gain this turn. So notably, drawing a card from Shieldred gains you 2 life. You can also like Kaido to gain another 2 life. Virtue gains you 2 life. The food token, if you're at 5 mana, gains you 3 life. Then you cast the Virtue, so it's kind of a self-enabler as well. A life from the graveyard Trespasser attacks. There's a lot of ways to incidentally gain life, and then just have it enter the battlefield, kill a creature, and then give you another life linker on the way back. Some Gix commands in here as like the Sweeper, Hornlock, Whale as kind of a tempo play, big body on the top. So this version of the list is shifted to a little bit more of a kind of controllier version, I would say. The one thing that you maybe would want to do, I would still probably want to find some space for some fairy masterminds in the deck. Right now you have a lot of permission based, so like you have your flash speed. You don't have a proactive thing to kind of slip into there. So the nice thing with Fairy Mastermind is it gives you the option to, okay, I'm going to hold up a counterspell, I'm going to hold up removal, but now I can also, my opponent didn't do anything, I can now flash in my threat. So you use your mana every turn. So I'd maybe trim along the edges, maybe trim like a Hornlock, trim 1 to 2 Lilianas, and then play a couple copies in there. And kind of go from that. Also, just like how the removal package is situated, so cut down and virtue hit kind of the same things in a sense. Where go for the throat is hitting those outliers. It's hitting your Shieldreds, it's hitting your bigger things, stuff of that nature. Given that, and like given that these are also slotted in 2-drop slots in the same case, I'd probably trim like a virtue in place of another go for the throat, just to kind of hedge what you're able to kill in these matchups. That's something to kind of consider, right? Like you have 8 spells that are killing basically 1 to 2 drops effectively. But then you're not gonna, like right now this deck has 2 answers to Shieldred that are instant speed. You have Gix Command, which could technically kill a Shieldred, but not guaranteed. And this deck's gonna want to draw cards at nature with like Kaido, stuff like that. And again, it also has like a limited scope where it can hit a Rafine. Like, cut down hits a Rafine, the turn it comes down, and then just that. Virtue never hits Rafine, so you're kind of a little bit soft in those cases there. Like also this doesn't hit Denic when it's at like the turn it comes down. This also doesn't hit, not Denic, Godric. This doesn't hit Godric, so things to kind of consider along those edges. And then lastly, we have a different type of Golgari deck. So this is a Golgari Ramp deck that's actually been doing pretty well. 50. So sorry, one thing with this is Diamond to Mythic. I found this deck, it looked cool. I got Gruff Triplets in my sealed pool. at the store opener, and I easily top 8'd with it because this card is stupid and limited. But it's kind of a mono green ramp deck offsetted with some black removal. So cut downs, go for the throats, virtues, some glisses in there, but you have your Bramble Familiars to help you ramp, Shigeki to get stuff back, Terra Sunder for early removal, as well as like late game exile, Beanstalk to get you some card advantage, Topiary Stomper to ramp you up along with the invasions. Then you have your Vorinclex to get you more lands, and then your top end's just like, yo, here are my bangers. Gruff Triplets comes in, makes you 3 bodies, just like swarms the board. Nissa makes you a bunch of big tokens, deals with artifacts, enchantments, overrun effect, Titan of Industry. A lot of flexibility here. Artifact, enchantment, blow up, gain you 5 life, give you a 4/4, put a shield counter, and then you could also hard cast the Virtue as well. You got your Restless Cottage in the mana base, kind of all playing into there. So this one's kind of a cool one. I just wanted to showcase in that. That's pretty much it for the week for best of 1. We'll come back with best of 3. I got today off, so I'm going to try to record as many of these as I can and get you up to date with all the formats itself. In any case, thanks for watching. Hope you have a great one. And if you enjoyed this content, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. Have a great one.